All right, so let's talk about something I know a lot of you think about. You've got an idea for a business, but you have no clue where to even start. Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and lay out a clear playbook, a path from that very first spark of an idea all the way to a business that can actually grow. Okay, let's jump right in. So you've got the idea. It could be an app, maybe a new kind of coffee shop, whatever. But then what? You know that feeling? So many of us get completely frozen right at this point. The sheer mountain of stuff you think you have to do, the business plan, finding the money, marketing, it just feels so overwhelming. It leaves you stuck before you've even taken a single step. And let's be real, a huge part of that feeling, that paralysis, it's just plain fear. The fear of failing, of wasting your time, of what people are going to think. But here's the thing you have to understand. That fear, it's not just normal, it's a good sign. It means you get what's at stake. Honestly, if you're not at least a little bit scared, you're probably not dreaming big enough. So what we're going to do in this explainer is treat that fear not as a stop sign, but as the starting line. We're going to walk through a modern playbook, step by step, using advice from entrepreneurs who've actually been there and done it, and break it down into a journey that anyone, and I mean anyone, can follow. Okay, first things first, we have to deal with that big psychological wall head on. This isn't about spreadsheets or funding applications yet. This is about getting your own head straight so you can even start the race. You know, the thing that stops most people, it's not a lack of money, and it's not a tough market. It's the horror movie they play in their own head about what failure would be like. This idea of risk feels absolutely catastrophic, but the very first step to getting over it is to just look it right in the eye. Here's a really powerful exercise for you. Instead of just having these vague fears, get specific. Detail the absolute worst-case scenario. What happens if it all blows up? I mean, really, where do you sleep? A friend's couch? You'd survive. What's the recovery plan? Maybe you could just get your old job back. When you actually stare it in the face, you almost always realize the actual risk isn't nearly as bad as you imagined. And this just lays it out so perfectly, right? The gap between what we feel and what's real. You're worried about going broke, but the reality is you're going to gain a ton of new skills that make you way more valuable. You're afraid of being humiliated, but the reality is you'll have an amazing story about that time you went for it. You fear total failure, but the upside is you become a stronger, more interesting, and way more capable person no matter what happens. So the bottom line is this. The only way to get better at taking risks is, well, to take risks. That perceived danger is almost always way, way bigger than the actual danger. You just have to make the jump. Okay, let's move on. We've dealt with the fear. Now let's talk about your brilliant, amazing idea. And I'm going to start with something that might sting a little, but is probably the single most important lesson any new founder can learn.
This right here is a total game changer for your mindset. You know the worst mistake you can possibly make as an entrepreneur? It's falling in love with your own idea. You have to start with this assumption. Your idea has flaws. You just don't know what they are yet. Your only job in the beginning is to find those flaws as fast and as cheap as you possibly can.
And this slide just shows the contrast perfectly. It's like two different universes. The old way is you hide away, you dream up this perfect plan, write 100 pages, try to raise a ton of cash. But the modern way, the validation hack, it's the total opposite. You assume the idea is bad, and your only goal is to smash it into reality, to get it in front of a real person, as fast as humanly possible. Let me give you the perfect example of this. So there's this college student, she has an idea for an app where students can share clothes with each other, and she's ready to go all in. Drop out of school, raise a bunch of money, hire a whole team to build it. I mean, it sounds like a pretty good idea, right? But instead of raising millions, she was told to run this test for exactly $0. Just write a sign, tape it to her door, "Would you like to borrow my clothes?" That's it. Does anyone even knock? If they do, she learns everything she needs to know. What styles people want, what sizes, what happens if something gets damaged, all for the cost of a piece of paper and some tape, not a multi-million-dollar investment. And that, my friends, is the validation hack. It's the art of testing the guts of your idea before you waste a single minute or a single dollar building the wrong thing. Find out if it's a good idea or a ridiculous one. And if it's ridiculous, you just drop it and move on to the next. Okay, so you did it. You stared down your fear, you validated your idea, people are actually knocking on your door. That is fantastic. So, now what? Well, now you get to experience the not-so-glamorous, totally exhausting, and often pretty lonely reality of building something from scratch. Ha! It's the classic dream, isn't it? I want to be my own boss.
But as this quote nails so perfectly, you very quickly find out that your new boss is a complete maniac. They make you work 16-hour days, they never give you a break, and you can't get away from them.
And this is really what that looks like day to day. It's stressful, it can be really lonely, and it often feels like you're on a treadmill. You're running as fast as you can, but you're not actually going anywhere. You're just reacting, putting out one fire after another. But the good news is, this is a normal phase. You just don't want to get stuck here.
So the whole point is that you have to evolve. You have to shift from being a fireman to being an architect. The fireman is just living in the moment, constantly reacting to whatever's burning brightest. But the architect, they step back, they think about the future, and they start building systems. You have to start managing your time on purpose. And maybe most importantly, you have to start adding great people to your team so you can get things off your own plate.
Okay, so once you've made that shift from fireman to architect, you can finally get out of the day-to-day chaos and start thinking about real strategic growth. This next phase is where you build the foundation for something truly massive. And one of the biggest mental flips that successful founders make is right here on this slide. A lot of people get focused on cash flow. How can we make a profit and how fast? But the companies that become huge, they are obsessed with opportunity size. They stop asking, how much can we make this quarter? And they start asking, could this thing possibly reach 1 billion people? It is a totally different question, and it leads to a totally different kind of company.
So how do you chase an opportunity that big? Well, you live by these rules. You move incredibly fast. You build systems so the business becomes a well-oiled machine that can run without you. You hire people who are way better than you are. You are always raising the bar. And the thing that powers all of it is this immigrant mindset. This deep understanding that your attitude and your effort are the only things you truly control, and they are your ultimate advantage.
We've covered mindset, we've covered validation, we've covered growth. Now let's just zoom all the way out and finish with the simple, universal truth that's underneath all of this. This is the bedrock that everything else gets built on.
At the end of the day, every successful business, from that little sign on a dorm room door to a giant global company, follows this one simple formula. The business has to make more money than it spends. Full stop. But the real secret is in that second half. You have to invest the difference, the profit, back into the business. You invest it in the systems, in the amazing people, in chasing those massive opportunities we just talked about. That is the engine of growth.
So there you have it, the modern playbook to take you from fear all the way to launch and beyond. The path is laid out. The steps are clear. The only question left is, what's your first move going to be? Is it that worst-case scenario exercise, or is it grabbing a piece of paper and some tape?